Hello, everybody. This is episode 15 of Spreading the Word. If you come to the town meeting, October 24th at 7 p.m. in the town hall, don't forget to enter by the side door, the entry to the police department, go up to the second floor on the elevator and get off and go into the Francis P. Hicks room for the public hearing. A program on for 15 weeks. That's almost 4 months. So these public hearings have gone on pretty well for almost 4 months now. By the time we get to the next one on the 24th of October, it will be 4 months. That should have given everybody enough time to get down and talk to Steve Sadlowski, the land use director, Mark Melanson, the building inspector, and even the town manager, Bob Geiger, who's very astute economically. The more you can talk to them between these public hearings, the better off you are. And if you can't get to them, then you should get to Mike Ham, who was on last week's program, if you remember. He spoke up pretty much at the public hearing. So that's the important thing. Where we are making progress is where people go down and talk to these people in the town hall and talk to Mickey Ham and try to get support for their desires. They even talk to each other, of course, as you saw in the last meeting. Tonight, I'm going to show you some more of the last public hearing. I started it last week, but couldn't get it all in one program. So tonight, you're going to hear a very interesting piece of the last public hearing. I'll start now with Joe Nichols. He's a resident of the town, is trying to build a garage in his backyard out in Danbury Quarter, and he's having some problems. You'll hear about that now. Listen very carefully to Joe, because he's a businessman in town and has been a resident for many, many, many years. And what he says has a great ring of truth to anybody who's not on the P&Z Commission or on the Zoning Board of Appeals. Everybody feels a bit like Joe, and he reflects that in his talk you'll hear tonight.
Joe Nichols, 157 Danbury Quarter Road. How's everybody doing tonight? Good?
Great, lucky.
Good. I'm well vested in the town. Been in business for 30 years, involved in youth sports for the last 20 years. So at times it can be hard coming up here and speaking, especially being a business owner. A lot of bad feelings if you say the wrong thing. My appliance business involves me with a lot of people in town, and very frequently I go into people's homes and they explain the situation of planning and zoning, going to the Zoning Board of Appeals. I patiently listen and say, yeah, well, it's town politics. Unfortunately, I'm trying to jump through the hoops now, and I just do not understand certain things. And apparently, I can put an A-frame roof that goes up 30 feet, but I can't put a gambrel roof that goes 26 feet. It's boggling my mind why. I don't understand. And apparently, this was taken out of the planning and zoning. So can somebody please explain why I can't do this without going to the Zoning Board of Appeals?
Well, Joe has expressed the feelings of many people, including myself, who do go around and talk to people all over town, all over the lake, all over Winchester, all over the city, all over other towns in the area and other states. We're all perplexed by, and we don't understand why, the people on the Planning and Zoning Board and the ZBA board, commissions or whatever, don't understand this. I think it's because they don't get out and talk to people. They should do more of that. They should do more listening and ask as many people as possible when they're starting to do new things. Listen now to Art Melcher's response to Joe Nichols.
I'd like to say something first, Joe. This is not town politics. State statute says planning and zoning requirements. State statute says zoning board of appeals. So there's no politics here.
Fair
we
enough.
have to follow state statute.
Fair
Please
enough.
understand that.
Oh, believe me.
So that the audience does. Comments
Okay.
like that get people upset.
Okay, my mistake.
Okay.
I understand that. I'm on a commission in town, so I understand that. And we have to follow state statutes also. So
Yeah.
my mistake. My bad.
Well, you heard Art speaking. He's a very well-known man in town. He does do a lot of good for a lot of people, and especially in the school system and in the veterans organizations. But when it comes to this, he's wrong. There is a lot of politics involved. The politics is at a higher level. The politicians, when they get into office, and now most of them are very liberal and don't know much about finance, they pick and appoint members to the Planning and Zoning Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals, and they're in for a long time, 5-year terms, that kind of thing. And they pick the kind of people that will do what they want them to do. If they don't want to grow the grand list, they'll put in people who want to make this a bedroom community like they're doing now. If they want to grow the grand list, they put in different types of people, and that's politics. So be very careful when you hear people like Art talk that way. Of course, they have to follow the laws, they have to follow the state statutes and any federal direction, and what's in our charter. But as we all know, people don't do that, and therefore they get appealed a lot. If it's not in their best interest, they'll try anything. Okay, let's get on with Joe Nichols again.
Okay, my mistake. I understand that. I'm on a commission in town, so I understand that. And we have to follow state statutes also. So my mistake. My bad.
Well, out of necessity, Joe gave up a little easy there. I think he does know that there's a lot of politics involved, even though they do have to follow the state statutes and often don't. That's why they get appealed, as I said earlier. But Joe had some points to make tonight. He didn't want to get involved, I'm sure, with a big argument about politics. So he got on with his own interests. Let's listen to him. Hear what Joe has to say.
So you're talking about the regs that are in place now?
Yeah.
So you can explain that one.
I can build a 30-foot A-frame roof, but I can't build a 24-foot gambrel roof. I have to go to the zoning board of appeals.
Again, I don't have the current regs in front of me. I should go grab them. But the current regs talk about the midway point. The height of the building is calculated to the midpoint of a peak roof. So it's halfway up the roof, like on a normal roof. But on a A-frame, because this is what I talked about earlier, the roof goes basically from the ground all the way up. It would be the midpoint of that, so it would be lower than a standard roof. And that's why I tried to fix that in the new regs.
So is that what we are trying to fix?
Yeah, so now it's going to be the midpoint between the top floor and the peak, which is closer to what would be with a normal gambrel type, or not gambrel, normal
A-frame.
no, normal pitched roof,
Which is an A-frame.
gable roof type. Yeah.
Okay. I just need some clarification because I wasn't sure. I kind of got a bunch of different answers. People down at the town hall were a great help. But I just think that sometimes common sense has to take place. And I'm not saying nobody has common sense. Don't take that the wrong way.
Well, those of you who have been listening to my programs over the last 10 years and watching them on Charter TV or YouTube, you all know that common sense is uncommon. Not many people have common sense. Common sense is uncommon.
But, you know, the town, and I would go to, and I'm going to be as quick as I can. You know, 5 or 6 years ago, I would go into towns like Torrington, and Barkhamsted, and New Hartford, and the discussion would say, what the hell is going on in Winston? What are these people fighting about? But we've turned that corner. We've changed, okay? The selectmen aren't bickering. We have a great town manager. We have a lot of good people in place. And we need to go and take the blinders off and go in a direction and not zigzag our way through everything. So I just want to thank everybody for their time and what they do for the town.
I got a question, Joe.
Yes.
This is in the current regulations. It's got building height. The vertical distance from the average finished grade within 10 feet of the walls of the building to the highest point of the flat or mansard roofs, including the top of the parapet or to the mean level, which we're talking about here, between the eaves and the ridge for gable, hip, and gambrel roofs. Now, you're saying, what's the absolute height of the structure you're talking about from the, well, this is average ground height. I'm talking to the commission when we start detailing where we're going to go on this. The way it's written is we're talking about an average height, which means, say you've got a
Well, you can go 30 feet.
Yeah, but it's that means is if you've got a sloped piece of property and the high point is 20 feet, say lower or higher than the low point, then you got to cut it in half. So you're only going to go 20 feet from your high side. You'll be 30 feet from the low side.
Yeah.
What I'm suggesting is we should go 30 feet to the mean level of the roof, based on the highest level that you're building to. Which, if you've got a sloped property, then you're going to be higher on that side,
Yes.
which we have so many pieces of property here on Iowa Lake. The whole town is kind of a sloped community, so. But if you've drawn a diagram, you're still talking on a gambrel, you're still talking about a mean height between the eave and and the highest point of your structure. So, you know, have you gone over I'm sure you have, but you've got a diagram that shows what you're trying to accomplish and you're having trouble. Okay.
And I mean, you're talking the difference of, you know, square footage in the I guess the gambrel is considered a second floor, but the square footage in usable space, I mean, you know, you're not talking 10,000 square feet. You're talking maybe a couple hundred square feet at the most.
Yeah, I think part of it is the clarity of a drawing that shows, you know, your ground level and what you're trying to build. If they're having problems interpreting that in the building office to evaluate for your building permit, then we should get a suggestion from the building department on how to clarify that. It shouldn't be, you know, arbitrary or depending on who makes the application. It should be a very easy thing to measure.
Yes.
And it either fits or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, then you can go and provide information with regards to a hardship or make an adjustment in your plan. But I think our whole issue here is to try to make this as user-friendly as possible for both sides of
Oh, absolutely. It's amazing how many people I hear are having a hard time trying to build something.
Well,
and I understand that. And I understand we need regulations.
But that's been the history, and that's what we're trying to do is get through this so that we don't have those kinds of continuing issues. Because some people don't even come in and make application because they don't want to go through the
Yes.
Yeah, your terms too.
Yeah.
If I may,
Yeah.
I just have one last comment, and it pertains back to the substitution of 10.6. And this is going to be a rare moment because I'm going to agree with George that I think more definitions of drawings would be really applicable, especially when you're describing the setbacks involved in that substitution, and you're talking about if two setback nonconformities exist in a corner, that corner may be expanded to the limits of the two sides. And I know last hearing, you drew this for me when I was in your office, you drew it for the people at the hearing. I think it would be a great thing to draw it out.
Some examples, yeah.
And some examples of how it can be used. Because reading the language, as many times as I read it, I go, is it the corner of the house or the corner of the lot? Now, so it becomes difficult to do. And I'm sorry I didn't mean to take up any more time, but I think it's a great suggestion.
You're about to hear An interesting suggestion by George Clausen, commissioner for many years, was at one time chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission. He's going to make a pretty interesting comment that we hear everywhere we go, not just here in Winston, but everywhere. If we could only have a simple set of rules that everybody could understand and had yes and no, not a lot of maybes. Maybe you can do this, maybe you can do that. Well, George is going to address that point now. He's done it in prior meetings as well. And maybe something will come of it, and maybe nothing will come of it, because they do like the politics of the situation. They like to be in control. You know, power tends to corrupt. And absolute power, as we all know, tends to corrupt absolutely. So they like the power. They like the power. They want to be in control. They're control freaks, or they probably wouldn't be on the commission. They let ZBA do a lot of their dirty work. Some towns don't do that, but we do. They'll pass it off to ZBA and let them be the bad guys. But anyway, listen to George.
One of the things that I know that I'm going to talk about when we're deliberating phase part of this whole thing is the more we place a responsibility in an individual to make a determination of how this all fits, I think it eliminates the ability for an applicant to have a pretty good idea whether they got a shot at doing something on a piece of property. So I think we have to be very careful with this administrative review, because you've got, when somebody made a comment at the last hearing, they said about this is getting to be more complex. I mean, it's to do with that type of thing, even though it applies to the whole town. And I think we've got to be careful. We can't, when I looked at it when I was earlier on this commission, we can't make a determination on an application based on the good faith and integrity of the applicant, because that applicant could very easily then get approval and turn it over to, in a sale, which is certainly legitimate. So I think the details that we have in the regulations that we wind up putting forward should be with as little interpretation as possible from depending on who's sitting in what seat. And I think that there was a gentleman that spoke at the last public hearing that we've got, and we have had enforcement problems in this community, and it's prevented people from either coming in and making applications, or it just it makes the whole process a little bit suspect. Not a little bit, it is a serious problem. So I would say, when we were thinking about what we're going to do in the final analysis of this particular thing, we should make it as clear as possible that the definition of how this is going to be approved.
The mechanics.
The mechanics of it, thank you. So that's just my comment about the administrative.
I've talked to many very knowledgeable people long before this meeting and after the meeting was over. And I didn't find anybody who didn't agree with George that we need to make things simple. We need to make things so that people can understand them and the decisions are concise and the choices are well known and also as simply stated as possible, so that we can get away from the maybe this, maybe that, it could be this, it could be that. We don't know. Go look it up on the internet. Go study the regs. Go talk to other people. Get yourself a lawyer. Get yourself a good land use attorney. Do all that. Now, some people have to do that anyway because they have very, very complex projects. But everybody agrees with George that you probably should make them very simple so that the average person can understand them without being an expert in the field, without having to hire a land use attorney that are very expensive, and without having to hire a land use engineer. It's also kind of expensive. Now, some people can afford it. Many, 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 many people cannot afford it. Most people cannot afford it. And George was right. Many people don't even bother to apply because they don't think they'll get anything. And it'll cost them a lot of money and a lot of grief and maybe make some enemies and maybe they'll lose some business, as Joe Nichols said. Because everybody believes that this is politics, as well as management to the state, federal, and local rules. If everybody sees that everybody's trying to help rather than hurt, then they will understand. You have to reach out to people. Salesmen don't sell anything if they sit in their office with the door closed. They have to get out. They have to communicate with people. They have to find out what the people want. This town was made for you and me, as you know, not for P&Z or for ZBA. So we are in a very difficult town for planning and zoning because of the lakes and the poor, run-down town. I don't quite agree with Joe Nichols. I think we're a long way from growing the grand list. And just because people talk to each other or are perceived to be talking to each other doesn't mean we're going to win. They have to work together. They have to go out in the world and find out what the world wants, combine that with what we'd like to have, make compromises, and then come up with some simple rules and regulations that are legal by state and federal standards. Get rid of a lot of the interpretation that has to happen, and everybody that reads it and looks at it has a different interpretation for all these rules. There's many rules in everything we do nowadays. There's laws everywhere. The state's involved in everything. The feds are involved in everything. The town's involved in everything. So it's very complex. But it doesn't need to be that way. If people will work together, no matter what, join together, listen to the world, find out what people would like to do in our town, try not to tell them what they have to do in our town because that scares them away. It scares residents away from P&Z and ZBA. It scares businesses away from the town. It doesn't scare away 4013Cs and other nonprofit type companies. They're attracted here. They like to go where they won't be taxed and establish a non-taxable entity. But most of the people that have to go to P&Z do pay their taxes, and they don't mind paying their taxes as long as they know everything is fair and balanced. If it's not fair and balanced, they don't like that too well, and you can't blame them. You can't blame them at all. So now I'm going to have to switch into a different mode. I want to encourage you once again to spread the word. Tell everybody in town and all your friends, relatives, whatever, family members, to pay attention. Because the more they pay attention and bring up issues of their own, the more other people will say, hey, I have the same problems, like they're doing in these meetings. They have the same problems, and they want to see the same sort of solutions. So a lot's happening there, and it'll continue to happen. And the more people that come to these meetings or go down to the town hall between meetings and sees Steve Sadlowski, the land use director, or Mark Melanson, the building inspector, or Bob Geiger, the town manager, who I'm sure will be happy to talk to you if you schedule an appointment and catch him when he has some time. He'll be happy to talk to you and listen to what your views are. He's not like P&Z and ZBA. He doesn't wait until his mind's made up and then ask your opinion. He tries to get your opinion before he makes up his mind. And it isn't legislated. He doesn't need a public hearing to do it. He goes out and talks to people all over the place. He talks to people here. He talks to people he's trying to attract here. He talks to people who want to come here. He talks to management in other towns that have similar problems. He talks to people in other towns that have solved the problems, trying to find out how we can solve our problems. So you need to talk to these people, carry on a little conversation. If you present to them very simply what you're trying to achieve, they might be able to help you. And if you do it before they vote on these new regulations, then you got a chance. You got a chance to get your views heard and maybe even get the rules changed a little bit. But as I always say, once they're changed, it's going to take a mountain to move them. It'll go another 10 years. There won't be any serious changes made along the way because they don't want that to happen. Unless, of course, a new board gets in, but that's going to be hard because they have 5-year terms on this board particularly. And they're going to be in control for the next 10 years. And we're going to be fighting these problems between the lake and the town, or the lakes in the town, for a long time to come. Because they're not all working together to achieve the same end. Now, I want to point out to you that on this Planning and Zoning Commission, you have George Clausen from the Highland Lake District. You have Mr. Sandin, the chairman. He's from up in the outskirts of town towards Winchester. You have Barbara Wilkes, who's from the lake, and she's been against most of the development in this town since I've been here. She always shows up if it's a chance to stop development in her backyard. They have now got control of planning and zoning and ZBA, and they'll keep it for a long time to come. So it's going to be tough. You got to get your word in now. You got to do it publicly so everybody can help you. And everybody who wants to can join in the chorus. That's good, not bad. Now, in the end, you might not get anything. You might not get anything. But at least you have tried. And you can sleep better at night. You can move out of town if you don't like the results. You can do whatever you want because you're in control of your own future. But now's the time to try to get your word in, to help everybody else, to help everybody you can. Don't expect any pats on the back. You might get a few kicks in the rear end. People will look at you and discuss, some, not many. Others will thank you. Some will pat you on the back, but not many. They especially won't do it publicly, because Joe Nichols was right. This whole thing is politically driven. And I always say to people when I see them with a political sign on their business, if I were you, no matter what political party you're in or independent party or anything like that, I wouldn't have a political sign on my business. You need the business of everybody. And there are people around here who will say, don't go into that store, don't go into that business, because we don't agree with their viewpoints when it comes to politics. Once in a while when I go to the landfill, I'll kid around with them up there about politics, and they'll say, oh, no, we can't speak politics. We can't talk politics. And whenever I go into any store, I try not to talk politics except for the teasing I do down at McDonald's or down in Torrington or somewhere like that, do a lot of teasing. But everybody knows that it's teasing, and everybody should have their own view on what they do when it comes to town politics and town business, and their own family politics and their own family business, and their own neighbors' politics and their own neighbors' business, and their own friends' politics and their own friends' business, and their own children's politics and their own children's business. So that's a very interesting approach. You got a chance to get down there now for the next public hearing, which might be the last one. It's about Section 10.6. We're trying to get the wording as close as possible in the new regulations to what it was in 10.6 before it was eliminated in July 22nd, 2016, hastily and without really getting enough input from the people at the lake and in the other areas of town that will certainly be affected by it disappearing from the regulations. Now, they say they have some wording that's pretty close to what it was before, Section 10.6. I don't think that's quite true yet. You're getting a little closer, maybe, because they are beginning to consider some changes. Doesn't mean they'll make the changes. So what I'd like to say is, if you go to the meeting for the public hearing, following the public hearing that night will be a regular planning and zoning meeting. I don't know who will be there from the board, which ones will be there and which ones won't. But they'll be making a lot of comments and discussion about all the changes that people have brought up over the last 4 months, possible changes, the new, totally rewritten planning and zoning regulations. And unless they open another one, which is unlikely, I don't even know if it's legal to do that, they're going to go ahead, consider all the input, and make decisions. Maybe they'll, I don't know. See, I'm not up to date on all the legal stuff here, but you can listen if nothing else when you go to the meeting. You can see who's saying what, and you probably can't ask any questions, but that's the best you can do. That's why it's good to go to the public hearings, because during the public hearings and in the time between the public hearings, you can talk to people. You can get the information from town employees, from other people around town. That all helps. During the public hearings that we've had so far, and with all the input to the land use director and others, town manager, etc., between the public hearings, a lot of issues have been put on the table by residents, homeowners, property owners, businessmen, etc. in the town for the Planning and Zoning Commission to consider at their next regular meeting on the 24th of October. You can sit in that meeting, if you can stand it, and you can listen to all the discussion that they will have amongst themselves, and get a better idea for what their reasoning is for the decisions that they will make. This will be very interesting, but very few people can understand all this because they're not land use attorneys and they're not land use engineers, and they don't have that much familiarity with the planning and zoning regulations, the state laws, the federal laws, etc., etc. They don't really have a plan for the town. There is no plan for growing the grand list. There's no objectives, yearly objectives like the Harvard Business School would like to see. There's none of that. So it's very hard indeed. And most people don't know what's out there around the country, what's out there that would like to come to our town. They always fall back on the obvious. Let's make this into a gateway into the Berkshires, or let's make this an art town, or let's make this, or let's make this that. But they never consider if it will add or subtract from the grand list. And meanwhile, while we're in the condition we have, with all the low-cost housing, because housing is now devaluating here, and with all the contamination we have in the ground, and all the old buildings that need a lot of money to restore, we're not attracting the right kind of people here that will help us grow this grand list in a reasonable manner. Now, a lot of the money from the grand list comes from businesses, industry, that doesn't have a lot of children in the school system, because that's our most costly thing here. 65% of our budget goes to the schools. Of course, the schools are in trouble now because of all the rules from the state and the federal people. A lot of it is helpful, of course, but it is expensive. My approach has always been to try to get the money to pay for it and improve the school system and get the grades up from the bottom 30% in K through 6. Be more competitive with those in the rest of the state and the rest of the country. That's my view. But it's hard. It's going to take that 15 to 20 years I keep talking about. Most people can't even read the spreadsheet we've put out. Don't understand what's involved. So it's very tough. So if you go there, you'll hear a lot, and it's usually people who have an interest. They want to do something. They want to add to their house. They want to add to their business. They want to add to their properties. Those are the people that do get interested. And if we could get more people like Mickey Ham who do understand the regulations and do work with the regulations all the time, or land use attorneys in the area, or land use engineers in the area that come in and speak up, that would help. But they don't want to do that because that might hurt their business. It might cause them a political problem. When you go around and get people to sign petitions, they'll tell you for hours and hours and hours what their problems are, but most of them won't sign the petition. We did get a lot to sign the petition. We got 220 or so, and probably could get another 100 pretty easily. Got almost none from downtown and none from Winchester, so there's plenty of area there to get more signatures. But people really don't care until they go for a permit. And when they go for the permit, they run into the brick wall that Joe Nichols has been running into, and other people that speak up have been running into. They run into those brick walls. And of course, then it's expensive, or perhaps even impossible, to get anything done. Now, if we can get these regulations to be more specific and eliminate the ifs, ands, and buts, that'll help. But if you go and sit in that meeting on the 24th, where they contemplate all these changes that have been suggested to them, you'll get a good feeling for the ifs, ands, and buts that are involved. Nobody can put a finger on anything. It's hard to measure anything. Can't be done by most people. So you're relying on doctors here that may not have the experience to help you. And that is not healthy for our town. So with that, I think I'm going to close the program early tonight by once again urging you to spread the word. It's worked so far. We've been going for almost 4 months now. Can't go much longer because decisions will be made. So you need to spread the word. A lot of the people, of course, are gone for the winter. I think roughly 60% of the lake leaves for the winter. They're not here to come to these meetings. So the people that are here, people like me, Mickey Ham, and others, have to speak for them. They can make phone calls, of course, from around the country and around the world if they have to Steve Sedlowski, and anybody else they want to in the town hall. But they're not likely to do that. They're getting on with their business elsewhere and their pleasure elsewhere. They don't have time for any of this. This is very complex, as I've been saying all along and keep repeating. I found out this week that when they said they cut the number of zones down from the teens to 8 or 9, they really didn't cut the zones down. What they did was they merged some zones together. Where they had 2 commercial zones, for example, they merged them together. If they had 2 industrial zones, they merged them together, that kind of thing. It's all play on words. It was something they were bragging about, which isn't really that much of a help, but it's better than nothing. So with that, I'm going to close out for tonight. I'll see you at the meeting on the 24th if you come. You can certainly bring issues to either myself or Mickey Ham, or go directly to the town hall and talk to the land use people there, and the building inspector, before the next public hearing on October 24th. Don't forget to go around to the police station entrance when you arrive around 7 p.m. Take the elevator up to the 2nd floor into the Francis P. Hicks room where the meetings will be held. With that I say good night, enjoy Halloween, and we'll see you next week. Brian O'Haron, spreading the word, number 14. Good night. If you come to the town meeting on Tuesday, October 24th at 7 p.m. in the town hall, don't forget to enter by the side door, the entry to the police department, go up to the 2nd floor on the elevator and get off and go into the Francis P. Hicks room for the public hearing.